Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. That's for you deep cut fans. So Die Hard 2, Die Harder tells the story of John McClane once again facing off against a group of terrorists while they are taking over an airport and his wife is flying above them, running low on fuel. Welcome back to the Die Hard review series, everybody. If you did not see it, on Christmas Day, I reviewed Die Hard, my favorite movie of all time, ranked. So I decided it's time to go over the entire franchise. I have not talked about this franchise super in-depth yet. I've done quite a few rankings that have included Die Hard or a couple of Die Hard sequels, but some of these movies in this franchise will be the first time I'm talking about them in length on this channel. And now we are at Die Hard 2, which is a movie that I have always liked, but honestly, previous to A Good Day to Die Hard, which unfortunately I'll have to talk about yet again, this was my least favorite Die Hard movie. While always being a movie that I enjoy rewatching, that I always acknowledge is a Die Hard movie, and I always celebrate as a Die Hard movie. So starting off with the positives for Die Hard 2, the main one is Bruce Willis as John McClane. That's the main thing that I love about all these movies, honestly. I mean, don't we all? Bruce Willis is awesome in this role. Bruce Willis gives so much personality and so much attitude and so many one-liners to this role that just makes him such an iconic action hero, and that is full force in this movie. He's just as on fire as he is in all of the good Die Hard movies. The one-liners are great. All of his interactions with all the characters, especially the ones that are being antagonistic towards him and stepping on his toes and getting in the way of him saving his wife, those are some of the most memorable scenes. He's very capable in the action scenes, the fight scenes, the shooting, all of that. He's just an awesome action hero, and this movie, for all of its flaws, that is one that it absolutely does not have. They carry that character over perfectly from the first film into this second crazy situation. I also like the setting of the airport. I think that it makes sense for the story that they're going for, and the I have to hesitate to say it's a good place for terrorism. Can't say that anymore.
But you don't say that.
Shut up. It's a good place to stage action sequences. It's a good place to stage this, good guy versus bad guy situation. And I think that it has a nice ticking clock element automatically built in with all these planes circling around this landing strip, running low on fuel while the terrorists are taking over this place and not letting them land. And I just think it gives a good little bit of tension that ratchets up throughout the movie, this event that John is trying to prevent. Even if his wife was not part of the passengers in one of these planes, I think the plot would work just fine on its own because he's a character that genuinely wants to help people. And as soon as that one plane is being kind of manipulated into crashing in the second act of the film, he's the first one that jumps out onto the runway and starts trying to save everybody. And even the scene afterwards where you see the aftermath of all those people's death on John McClane's face. I mean, just the airport setting as well as the impending doom of hundreds of people in the air really does rise the stakes a little bit from the situation that he was in Nakatomi. I also like the villains in this movie, and I like to where it's kind of a group of villains. There's not necessarily a Hans Gruber, a central villain in this movie. I guess if there is, it would be William Sadler's character, but he feels like he really does share the screen and share the plot overall with a couple other people, and I like the fact that it kind of gives John McClane a group to take out and a group of people that are kind of all at it for their own reasons instead of just having one central figure yet again. It worked great in the original Die Hard, and it works great in other sequels in this franchise, but this one does feel like he's taking on a couple different masterminds. And save for his naked karate introduction scene that always throws me off, I love William Sadler. It's a guy that I always love to see, whether he's in Shawshank, whether he's in Demon Knight, whether he shows up in Bill and Ted. I mean, I just love this guy. Every time he shows up, he brings something to the movie. He's never bad in any movie that he's in, even if the movie is bad. And I do like his character here. I think his plot is pretty diabolical. It's pretty smart. It's certainly evil, so it fits everything that you want a villain to have. He doesn't quite have that charisma, that velvet in his voice that Alan Rickman had in Hans Gruber that just makes him one of the most iconic villains of all time, but he's certainly not one of the worst villains in this franchise by any stretch. I really like what William Sadler and even his surrounding characters do as they are revealed throughout the movie. And speaking of reveals, I like the way that the plot kind of unfolds to where John McClane is just in this airport waiting on his wife, starts to see some things that are suspicious, gets involved in a gunfight, starts to dig a little bit more, realizes there's this big terrorist threat that nobody wants to believe him about. Eventually, he's the one man against everybody. You even get that whole twist with the army unit that's brought in that ends up being fake, and they're all shooting with fake bullets to kind of cause this ruse to make it look like they're trying to take down Colonel Stewart when they really are working with him. All the way throughout the movie, the plot keeps unfolding. It's not something that you can just look at in 5 minutes and say, I know where everything's going. It actually has some nice little reveals throughout. And being that this is directed by Renny Harlin, there's some very, very serviceable to great action in this movie. That's the one thing that this guy always does great. You can pick on him for some of his scripting, some of his directing of actors, or whatever you want, despite the fact that he has made some of my favorite movies of all time. You can say that about some of his films, but the action spectacle is always what you get this guy for. I mean, he's just good at making things look great on screen, and there's a lot of great action sequences here. There's a lot of huge explosions, there's a lot of great shootouts, there's some good hand-to-hand combat. I really like the over-the-top nature of the whole fist fight on the wing of the plane in the third act, so I really think that Renny Harlin does bring a nice energy to this movie. He's not John McTiernan, and if John McTiernan did direct this movie, I'm sure it probably would be a little bit better, a little bit more renowned, but for the sequel that we got, I think the style that Renny Harlin brings is fun.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Moving on to the mixed, this is the one Die Hard sequel that feels the most as a companion piece to the original film. Stylistically, tone-wise, similar score, very similar plot line, to the point where they make a nice little double feature. It's kind of like Halloween 1 and 2, where you could watch them as, not necessarily one movie in this case, but you could watch them back to back, and they very much feel like they fit together. And that's nice, because those of us that love Die Hard, that's essentially what this movie is more of everything that we love. The problem is, every single thing in this movie that has been done in the original Die Hard was done better in the original Die Hard. So, by default, when you look at these two movies, you're always looking at an inferior version of the previous film. There's not really anything here that's really unique, really stand out, or really different from that first film, aside from the setting of the airport and a couple of different characters, but even the side characters themselves are just alternate versions of characters we got in the first film. You don't have Sergeant Powell here, and so you get this guy that's a janitor that's kind of walking through and helping John McClane get all these things that he needs in the airport. You don't have Chief Dwayne fucking up the works and doubting every single thing about John McClane, so you give that to the airport security chief that is just completely against John McClane from the beginning. And just a lot of small elements like that are carried over from the first film because they very much wanted to follow that template again, a la like Home Alone 2 style, but do something slightly different with it. And I enjoy it for that, but amongst the franchise, that's the reason why it's always been my least favorite of the sequels that I do enjoy, because anytime I'm in the mood for a Die Hard movie, like Die Hard, I'm just gonna watch Die Hard. So unless I'm watching a franchise little binge, I really don't pick up Die Hard 2 by itself very often. When I will pick up With a Vengeance, I will pick up Live Free or Die Hard if I'm in a mood for a movie that's not necessarily Nakatomi focused. And the other mixed element is bringing back Bonnie Bedelia as Holly Gennaro, or Holly McClane, presumably in this movie, and putting her as the person in peril once again. Now, I like that element of him saving his wife. Like I said, it was one of the strongest elements of the first film, and I actually think it's one of the most underused elements that they haven't really developed fully in this franchise. And this movie is kind of the reason why I say that, because here she is again, she's here for the entire movie, but she's just relegated to these little meanwhile on the plane scenes, and so they don't really do anything to develop her character, they don't really do anything to develop their relationship anymore, they're just not at each other's throats in this movie. So she's up in the plane dealing with her own shit, John McClane's trying to save her the entire movie, and this is the last time that we see this character. So unfortunately, I just always felt like, not necessarily this movie's fault, but after this film, they just didn't know what to do with Bonnie Bedelia because they've used her the same exact way 2 films in a row, and it just felt like there was a lot of nice character development, nice relationship development that they had potential for in these further movies that, for whatever reason, just didn't happen. Moving on to the negatives, we gotta get the easy one out of the way, the thing that you have to forgive immediately if you're going to enjoy this film. It is a big stretch of plausibility that John McClane and his wife and the fucking reporter from the first movie are all involved in the same plot yet again, which is, I think just a couple of years later, maybe even 1 year later from Nakatomi. That's the sequel problem that some of these movies have. I think that the further Die Hard movies come up with a much more reasonable explanation for why John McClane gets involved yet again, especially the third film, but this is the one where it's just like, it's just circumstance, and there's even in-jokes in the movie where John's like, how the hell could the same shit happen to the same guy twice? And even at the end of the movie, when he embraces his wife, she's like, why does this keep happening to us? So the movie acknowledges that it's dumb. And as long as you walk into this movie knowing that that's going to be dumb and just get that out of your mind and don't ask any questions beyond that, you'll have a really good time with it. But you got to acknowledge the fact that it's fucking dumb. Speaking specifically about the reporter that comes back from the first film, the one that Holly punched in the face at the very end of the first film, he's the one element of this movie that I could pretty much do without. Not that I hate his scenes, especially the scenes with Holly where she's giving him shit, calling him Dick, which is his first name, but she's using it in the other sense, when she tasers his ass in the bathroom. Like, those are good moments, but he is that little bit of extra element that's just kind of like forced carryover from the first film that I don't think really does a whole lot of favors for the movie. I think the movie would have been just fine having Holly up in the air with the other passengers. Maybe she's trying to, like, you know, be the mom of the plane or be the leader, kind of like she was at Nakatomi, where she's calming people down or kind of getting them to do something to make the situation a little easier. Maybe there's a point in the movie where they could have had John McClane able to communicate with her in the air. I really don't know, but I feel like relegating her and the reporter just to expanding off of that one little moment where she gets pissed off at him and punches him in the face for endangering their kids and stretching that into a whole sequel-long subplot didn't really feel necessary to me. I don't hate it. Never liked it. Now, this isn't a negative. I'm pretty much done reviewing the film, but this is something that I did think was interesting to talk about here. So I made a point in my first Die Hard review to talk about why that movie is absolutely 100% a Christmas movie to me, and kind of give this whole thing about, look, Christmas movies means different things to different people. Different people have different check boxes, different criteria for what makes it a Christmas movie to them. You might not agree with it. People have made it clear that they don't agree with a lot of people that think that Die Hard's a Christmas movie. But something to that point that I think is interesting is that even though Die Hard 2, Die Harder, is very much taking the template of the first film to the point where it's on Christmas, they have the terrorism plot again, it's John trying to save his wife, there's even moments of the same score. Even though all of those elements are carried over from the first film, Die Hard 2 has never felt like a Christmas movie to me. So that just kind of broadens the conversation yet again, where the first film very much has the themes of a Christmas movie. They have a lot of Christmas themed, like Ode to Joy, worked into the score of the film. The whole central plot about a man trying to get home to his family. At its base, that's what it is, and then it's just brought into this huge terrorism plot. A lot of Christmas visuals. This movie just states that it's on Christmas in the beginning and the end of the movie, maybe once or twice throughout the film as kind of a throwaway acknowledgement. And of course, there's a couple of those notes of that score, but beyond that, they don't really lean into the Christmas thing very much. You can easily watch this and forget that it's even on Christmas. And so that is something I felt like was necessary to mention. I don't know if anybody feels that way about the movie that I do, where you're passionately thinking the first film is a Christmas film, and this one has just never really felt like that, but felt like it was necessary to bring up. So what do you guys think? Is Die Hard 2 a Christmas movie? Let me know down below. So overall, guys, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, I think is a very good Die Hard movie. It's a very good 90s action film. I think that it holds up pretty well, maybe ages the worst of the good Die Hard movies, but certainly hasn't aged horribly. But it is probably still the Die Hard sequel that I enjoy, but do not pick up on its own very much. So I love seeing John McClane brought back into the situation. A lot of great one-liners and a lot of great moments and action sequences in this movie, but to me, it just stands out the least amongst all of the good Die Hard movies. So if you're a fan of the first film, definitely check this sequel out. It has a lot of the elements that you loved from the first, but don't expect it to be anywhere near on the level of that original classic. If you're a fanatic of the franchise, you already own it, but for everybody else, check it out online and stream it. So what do you guys think of Die Hard 2, Die Harder? Is this one of your favorite sequels? Is this your favorite Die Hard movie, or do you not like this sequel? Let me know down below. And is it a Christmas movie? I'm very curious on where people fall in that, because I noticed that about halfway through, I'm like, this isn't a Christmas movie to me. I wonder how many people agree with that. Let me know down below, guys. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more on this channel, and you will definitely see the rest of this Die Hard franchise review series, one a week, for the entire month of January before we end on a ranking of the Die Hard movies, as well as a ranking of the Die Hard villains. We're also going to be wrapping up Dexter next week. We're also going to be getting into Scream in a week or two. So we got a lot of things to talk about in the month of January, kicking off this new year of 2022. So please stick around by hitting that subscribe button and not missing any of that awesome stuff in the future. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.